Hello again and welcome back to our course on Word 2019. We're now in section 8 and we're starting out with module 1 where we're going to start talking about options for controlling the appearance of your page. And in particular in this module we're going to take a look at page breaks. Now there are two types of page breaks. The first one is what we call a soft or an automatic page break, and these are the ones that the computer automatically inserts. So for example, if I scroll down to the bottom of this first page, you can see that once you finish typing at the bottom, the computer will automatically put you onto the next page. So this is what we call an automatic page break. It's not one that you've added, it's the one that automatically happens when you get to the end of a page. And you can see here page breaks can happen in the middle of a paragraph as they have done here. The second type of page break is what we refer to as a hard or a manual page break. And I'm going to show you an example of that. So I'm going to click my mouse just before where it says Sales Associates, and I'm going to insert a manual page break. So I'm going to go up to the Insert ribbon, and in this first group, the Pages group, I have an option for Page Break. So I'm going to click it. And you can see that it's broken that page where my cursor was positioned and it's pushed down the Sales Associates paragraph onto the next page. Now you might be wondering how you can see where in a document you've placed your manual page breaks. Well, all you need to do is go back to the Home ribbon and turn on those non-printing characters again using your Show Hide command. And if I click that, you can see there we have a manual page break. If I decide for whatever reason I no longer want that manual page break, all I need to do is click on it to highlight it and press my delete key, and you'll see that the Sales Associates gets pulled back up again. Now it might be that when you put a page break in, I'm just going to click in front of Corporate Division and add another page break in. It might be that sometimes if you put one in that you end up with just one little piece of text on one page. So just be aware of that. Wherever you clicked, it's just going to push everything down onto that next page. Now I don't want that one there, so I'm going to delete it out again. It's also worth noting that you can only delete manually inserted page breaks, so you can't delete any that have been automatically applied by the application. Another trick to make your life even quicker and easier is I'm going to show you the shortcut key you can use to insert a manual page break. So again, just to keep things consistent, let's click in front of Sales Associates, and the keyboard shortcut is Control Enter. And you can see there we have the page break in there. Now one thing you should also be aware of is when you are putting page breaks throughout your document, you must be aware that it can affect things further down. So it will push things down onto other pages. So if you have things like tables of contents set up, you must make sure that you go in and update your table of contents, because you might find that some of your content is now on a different page if you've added in lots of page breaks. So just one thing to be aware of, and we will be talking about tables of contents later on in the course. So that's how page breaks work. You can see they're pretty easy. In module 2, we're going to talk about another kind of break you can have in your document, and that's called a column break. So please join me in the next module for that. Hello again and welcome back to our course on Word 2019. We're now down in section 8, module 2, where we're going to start to look at working with columns. Now, you may have some experience with documents that are in columns. If you think of something like a newspaper, you'll often find that the text in a newspaper is arranged into columns, and you can pretty much do exactly the same in your Word documents. So I have a blank document here, and let's say that we want to divide this into 2 columns. I'm going to go up to the Layout ribbon. And in this first group, the Page Setup group, we have an option for columns. And this is where you can define how many columns you want in your document. So currently I only have 1 column essentially, and I want to divide this into 2 columns. So how can I tell that this page has been divided into 2 columns? Well, if you look at the ruler, you can see we have a grey area in the middle. So when I start typing, my text is going to basically go along up to that grey area, then it's going to wrap around and go on to the next line. So effectively giving me 2 columns of text. So if I just type in some junk text, you'll see it starts to wrap around. So we get that kind of newspaper style look and feel. Now, if I was to continue going all the way down to the bottom of the page, as soon as I hit the bottom of the page, it's going to jump up to that next column and continue down. Now, one thing you might find quite interesting is that if, for example, say I now want to type in this second column, if I try and click my mouse anywhere in this column, I can't actually click there. The only way I can get to that second column currently is if I carry on typing all the way down until it wraps around into that next column. So if you find yourself in this scenario where you actually want to jump across into the second column, you're going to need to add a column break. So again, we can stay on the Layout tab for this, and you can see we have a little break section just here. And you'll find all different kinds of document breaks in here. So we have our page break, which we looked at in the previous module. And the second one down is a column break. So I'm just going to click that. And can you see what happened there? My cursor has now jumped to that second column, and I can now type in there. Remember, if you want to see any of the breaks in your page, you need to turn on those show hide markers. And then we can see I have my column break in there. Of course, if I want to delete that column break, I do it in exactly the same way as I did for deleting the page break. I just click on it and hit the delete key. So now we've seen how we can add columns into a document. Let's look at an existing document and see how we can turn that into columns. So I'm going to go back to our document that we were looking at previously, at pageappearance.doc. I'm just going to click in front of About Us. I'm going to go to the Layout ribbon. I'm going to go to Columns, and I'm going to say 2 columns again. Now, this looks a little bit strange because my title is also in the column. I might want to have my title still at the top and then just have the rest of the text in 2 columns. So I'm going to undo, and this time what I'm going to do is I'm just going to highlight all of my text apart from that title. So I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom. And then I'm going to apply my columns again. So I'm going to go back to Columns and select 2. And now it hasn't affected my title. So that looks slightly better. But it really is very simple just to apply columns to an existing document. Now, one more thing I want to show you in here. If we go back into that columns drop down, obviously you can select 3 columns, left column, right column. I want to jump you down into this section that says More Columns. Now again, in here we have our presets, so you can select 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth, or you can manually choose your number of columns. So if you want more than 3 columns, you can choose that from here. You also have the ability to define the width of each column as well. So if I had 2 columns, if I just select 2 columns there, you can see I can go in and I can set the exact width and the exact spacing between those columns manually. And as I change this, you'll see in the preview on the right hand side, that preview just changes so I can see what that's going to look like. Now here I also have this equal column width checkbox checked. If I uncheck that, that's going to allow me to adjust them so that they're not always even. So that might be useful to you in some scenarios as well. And I can also say if I want to apply my new column settings to this section, or from this point going forward, or to the whole document. So you can specify where you want to apply these column settings as well. Another thing that's quite nice to do is to check this line between checkbox. I get a line running down the middle of my page, so that can look quite nice, particularly if you're doing something maybe like a resume or a magazine article or something like that. So you have a few different options underneath More Columns. So that's pretty much all there is to inserting columns into existing documents and also setting up blank documents in columns. In the next module, in Module 3, we're going to talk about adding a watermark to our document, so I will see you over there. Hi everyone, this is Deb and welcome back to our course on Word 2019. We're down in section 8 looking at different ways that we can control our page appearance, and in module 3 we're going to take a look at how you can add a watermark into your document. Now, you may have seen watermarks on various documents previously, so you might see them on legal documents or property documents, and it's that kind of grayed out text that's in the background. It might say something like confidential or top secret or something along those lines. Now, in Word, you can add in some predefined watermarks that are already in the application, or you can set a picture or customize your own text. And that's what I'm going to talk you through in this module. So I'm working in our page appearance document for Smith Properties, and I'm going to go to the Design ribbon. And in the last group, the page background group, you'll see we have an option for watermark. So let's click that drop down and see what we have in there. So the first thing you'll see are a number of pre-designed ones, so ones that say confidential and do not copy. So let me just apply this first one so you can see what it looks like. And there you go, you can see it's very faint, it's not supposed to be too in your face, you're supposed to still be able to read the text over the top, but you can definitely see that it's there in the background. If we go back to watermark, if you want to browse some more sort of template watermarks, you could go onto the office.com website where they have a lot more of them. And you can also create your own custom watermark, which is what we're going to do in a moment. But first things first, I want to remove the watermark that I've just applied. So I'm going to click on this Remove Watermark option. And we're going to go back in and we're going to set our own custom watermark. Now currently when I come into this dialog box, I have no watermark selected. Now if I had a picture which I had saved off to my hard drive and I wanted to use that in the background, I could choose Picture Watermark and then browse to the location of that picture. Now I'm not going to do that, I'm going to use my own text watermark, which to be fair is the most common watermark you're likely to see. I can set my language, so I have mine set to English United States, and this is taken from whatever language you have set in Word, which again we'll look at this later. And then I can choose the text that I want. So again, there's a few in this drop down which you can choose from, or alternatively you can just overtype what's in this box with whatever you want it to say. So I'm going to put in here the name of the property company, so Smith Properties. You can also set what font you're using for your watermark. So mine's set to Times New Roman. I might want to take it to something like Arial. I can set the size. I'm just going to leave that on auto. And I can also choose the color. So if I wanted to stand out maybe a little bit more, maybe I can choose a different color. And I can choose whether I want it to display horizontally across the page or diagonally. And once I'm happy with my settings, if I just click Apply and close, you can see there is the watermark. So very, very simple just to set that watermark. So that wraps up this module. In the next module, module 4, we're going to talk about applying page borders. So please join me for that. Hello everyone, this is Deb and welcome back to our course on Word 2019. We've been looking at page appearance throughout this section, and now in module 4 we're going to take a look at how you can change the appearance of your page by adding headers and footers. Now if you've never come across headers and footers before, all they are a way of adding some useful information into the top and bottom margins of your document. So for example, in this document here, some information I might like to have in the top margin might be the company name or maybe a company logo. I might also want to have the date, and maybe in the footer of the document I might want to have a page number and maybe the file name or the location of the file or something along those lines. So you can set up your headers and footers and apply them to your entire document in various different ways. So let's see how we would do that. We're going to start with the header, and to get into your headers and footers, if you just hover your mouse over the white space in this top margin and double click, that will let you into that top margin area, and you can see we have a little tab there that says header, and if I scroll down to the bottom we can get into our footer as well. Now, the first thing I want to highlight here is the fact that we now have an additional contextual ribbon, header and footer tools, and that has its own design sub-ribbon. And on this ribbon, it contains everything we're going to need to work effectively with our headers and footers. Now, I'm going to be adding text into my headers and footers, but just be aware that if you do have something like a logo that you want to have, if you've got that saved off to your PC, you can insert that by using this Pictures button. Alternatively, you can go to Online Pictures and insert something from online as well. So be aware that you can insert pictures, but we're going to do text for the time being. So the first thing I want in my header is I want to add in the company name. So we're going to say Smith Properties. Now, one thing that's worth highlighting as well is if you look at the ruler just above the header, Word has already added in for us a center tab and also a right align tab over on the right hand side. So that means if I press my tab key, it's going to jump me across to the center, which is really useful. I haven't have to go in and set my own tabs. Now I'm going to press tab again to move all the way across to the right. And what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to put in today's date. Now I could just manually type the date in, but there is a problem with that. If I was to come back into this document tomorrow, if I've manually typed in the date's going to stay the same. So it's always going to say the date yesterday. In general, what I want this to be able to do is that each time I open this document, I want the date to update with the current date. So how do I do that? Well, let's go to our design ribbon. And in this insert group, we have an option for date and time. So I can choose a number of different formats for my date. So I'm going to say this one here, August the 4th, 2019. And I'm going to make sure that I've got this checkbox selected, Update Automatically. That's the little checkbox which controls how this updates. So when I come into this document tomorrow, it's going to say August the 5th, 2019. The next day, August the 6th, 2019, so on and so forth. So let's click on OK. Wonderful, so my header's looking pretty good. I now want to jump down to my footer and add some information in there as well. Now I could just scroll down to my footer, or alternatively, I could use this Go to Footer button in my navigation group. So if I click Go to Footer, it's going to jump me down. So now in my footer, I'm going to add a couple of pieces of information. The first thing I want to add is a page number. So again, very similar to the date, I could manually type in page 1 of 1, but that means that it's always going to say page 1 of 1 on every single page. And what I really want it to do is say page 1 of 1, and I want it to say page 2, page 3, page 4, so on and so forth. So again, to do that, I'm going to utilize one of the buttons on the design ribbon. In the first group, we have the header and footer group, and we have a page number option. And I want my page number at the bottom of the page. And I have a number of inbuilt styles that I can utilize. So I'm going to scroll down, and I think I'm going to choose this one here, Accent Bar 3. And there we go, it's put in page 1. If I scroll to my second page, you'll be able to see that I have my header nicely on there. If I go to the bottom, this one says page 2. This one says page 3, so on and so forth. So it really just makes your life a lot easier. Now again, I'm going to jump right across to the right-hand side by using my tab key. And there's lots of other things that I could add into here. And I'm going to add a little bit of document information. So again, if we go up to the Insert section, we have a Document Info button. So this will allow you to add additional information into your footer. So you might want to add who the author is. You might want to add the file name or the file path or even the document title. So I'm actually going to add in the file name, which is pageappearance.docx. So that's all the information that I want to add into my headers and footers. So I'm going to click on the Close Header and Footer button on the design ribbon. And you can see once you close out, it means that you can't actually click in here to edit them, and they will show in a light grey colour. If you want to go back in and make changes, you'll need to double click in your header to get back in there. Now, before we finish up this module, I just want to show you a few other options that you have with regards to headers and footers. So I'm going to double click to go back in and get back my design ribbon. Now I want to show you some of these options that you have just here. So the first one here, different first page. And if we hover over, it says it gives the first page a different header and footer from the rest of your document. So you might think, well, why would I want to do that? Well, a lot of the time you might not want to have your header and footer information on the first page of your document. It might be a title page or something like that. It doesn't look particularly professional if you have headers and footers on that front page. So if I select different first page, you can see it now changes to first page header. And I might decide that I want to delete out the information on the first page. And then when I close my header and footer, I don't have anything on this first page, but my information is still showing on the preceding or the following pages. Let's double click to jump back into that header again. And the next option down is different odd and even pages. So this allows you to specify that odd numbered pages should have a different header and footer from even numbered pages. So let's select that option. Now I don't want anything on my first page. I'm going to go to my second page. So this is an even page header. So I can come in here and I can set my settings, and anything I put in here is going to appear on the even pages only. So I might want to say something like presented by Deborah. And I want that to appear only on the even pages, so it should be on page 2. And you can see it's not on page 3 because that's an odd page header. And it's there on page 4. So that's a nice way of putting different headers for your odd pages and different headers for your even pages. And I'm going to close my header and footer. So there are lots of options within headers and footers for you to play around with and explore, and it really is worth having an experiment with them. They are quite fun once you get into them, and you can really make your document look really nice. So that's a quick overview of headers and footers, and that just about wraps up section 8 on page appearance. And then we're going to dive straight into section 9, so I will see you over there.